Go woke, go broke is dead. That's what Hollywood says, and conservatives are walking straight into a trap after the Odyssey came out and did a walloping $250 million plus worldwide opening. Has Christopher Nolan struck a stake into the very heart of the movement to stop neo-Marxist postmodern storytelling? We've got the story on the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pro Channel. We're so happy to have you, where we give you a daily dose of the truth with a capital T. And we mean to do the same thing right now. No propaganda, never from us. And we must dive in at this time. Click that like button. Take a look at this because you need to know what Hollywood is up to. And then I'm going to show you how conservatives and centrists, those of you in the middle, which is by far the majority, walking straight into a trap that Hollywood has set. Vanity Fair says this from Hillary Busis. The Odyssey's epic box office haul breaks the go woke, go broke myth. Christopher Nolan's film made over $264 million this weekend, once again proving flops like Ghostbusters and The Little Mermaid were not due to politics, and people will pay for a great yarn. Now, we're going to come back to this article in just a minute. I am going to disabuse you of believing this because it's untrue, and that's the whole thing. If this was correct, I'd be out here correcting and saying, folks, something has changed. There's been a shift in the narrative, in the culture at large. And that's the job here, to keep you ahead of the culture curve. But this is not accurate. And so we'll come back to that. I'll show you. Hang tight, folks, definitively. But first, I need to show you that conservatives and those in the middle are falling for this. Big numbers will do so. I'll show you why. Out of Variety, it says Ben Shapiro called Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey a masterpiece, despite the conservative outrage over the film's cast and historical accuracy. Nolan, it says, is unparalleled. He's the best director working today. Without a doubt, he just creates an iconic movie after iconic movie. That is Ben Shapiro weighing in on The Odyssey. Now, this is surprising, right? Because The Odyssey has been receiving backlash after backlash, ratio after ratio of negative reviews and negative thoughts about the trailers. So what's happening here? Dave Rubin hops in and says, The Odyssey was an absolute masterpiece. And you may have seen some of your favorite commentators out there also saying some of these same things. And I'm not here to tell you that these people should mute themselves or not tell the truth about what they think about the film. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I do think some of these blanket statements are setting up the trap for Hollywood that they have created for these kinds of commentators. And I have a belief about why this is happening. Let me show it to you. I think partly what is happening here is that many commentators, and I'm not accusing Ben Shapiro or Dave Rubin specifically of this. In fact, I don't think it applies to them, but I think you're going to see many people in the commentator class dive in today to adjusting the way they feel about the Odyssey. So if they didn't like it, they're suddenly going to like it. Why? Because if you're in the commentator class, you want to be on the right side of the audience. You never want to argue with society. You never want to argue with the culture. You are a populist, so you must be on the popular side. And so they're going to jump sides. They're going to say, oh, the Odyssey, it's wonderful. Not Ben Shapiro, not Dave Rubin. I think they're giving their authentic, accurate takes as to how they feel, and I disagree with it. But I'm not one of these haters. I gave the film a 6.5. I just thought it was okay. But many folks out there are going to see them saying this, and they're going to see these box office numbers, and they're going to jump. They're going to leap into the idea that go woke, go broke is dead. Why? Because they see these numbers, and the Hollywood articles were already pre-written, ready to go to say to them, you are wrong. This ship has changed. The bus has left the station. Quick, jump on our side. But this $264 million worldwide box office, folks, is also part of the media's shenanigans. And here's why. I talked about this yesterday. Big video for us. Thank you, everybody who watched it. Talking about how the Odyssey actual ticket sales are very, very unimpressive. What is impressive is how much money you can make if you make a specifically IMAX film and everybody goes to see it at IMAX. Let me read this article that we just released this morning on thatparkplace.com, and then we will go back to the Vanity Fair, having now set the table to completely wipe away what they're trying to say, which is incorrect. And that was the goal here, is to set you on the right path. Folks, you can go verify this. I encourage you, please don't ever just listen to what I say and take it at face value. Go check what we're saying. Go check what we're sourcing, and you'll see, I hope, that we're on the right track. that Park Place. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey is not selling the high number of tickets the media portrays. Again, this is what's leading the commentators to jump as fast as they can because they're being misled by the headlines because they don't understand these numbers. It says Hollywood thinks it has figured out the formula for defeating their biggest detractors after Matt Damon as Odysseus sailed into big numbers this weekend. The truth might be just the opposite. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey arrived in theaters with a worldwide opening weekend of $264 million, including $124 million domestically and almost $140 million internationally. While the film's massive debut speaks to Nolan's drawing power and Universal's marketing campaign, another major factor inflated its box office totals, the premium price of IMAX tickets. This goes out to list out that 50% is the increase from a typical movie ticket to an IMAX. Because if we take all movie ticket prices and put them together, including IMAX, including PLF, but also the matinees, like everything, cheap, expensive, whatever, the average price is $16.67 for this year. However, how much is the average IMAX ticket cost? Well, it's $25. So here's the bottom line, okay? I'll scroll way down so we can get to the TLDR. Folks, this film, had it not been on IMAX specifically, had normal theaters not been empty, had it not been, hey, you have to see this, you must see this in IMAX, the only way to see it is in an IMAX, it would have failed to break $100 million at the domestic box office. It's way below films like Toy Story 5, way below. This movie is selling tickets at sort of the same level as Mandalorian Grogu in the first weekend, but the total box office number has been incredibly inflated by IMAX. Now, I'm not here to tell you that's a bad thing. I think it's genius on the part of Nolan and everybody else who's doing this. This is a way, if we do this with blockbusters, maybe people are willing to pay the $25, and if that's the case, great for them. But the idea that the same number of people going to see Mandalorian Grogu went to go see this film, but the numbers are crazy because it's all in IMAX, and therefore Go Woke, Go Broke is dead, is nonsense. And yet, everybody who is jumping, leaping to change their opinion as fast as they can because they're terrified of these numbers, they don't want to be on the wrong side of the fans. They don't want to be on the wrong side of society. Folks, they've missed it completely. They don't understand the numbers, and so they are wandering into Hollywood's trap. And here's what the trap is. Let's read it. It says, seeing muse of the cunning Christopher Nolan, and by the way, as I read this, just know, they probably had this article written, ready to go before the weekend even happened. Seeing muse of the cunning Christopher Nolan, who has once again achieved the impossible. His new adaptation of The Odyssey has earned rapturous reviews, a coveted A cinema score from audiences, not A+, and the best non-Batman related opening of Nolan's career. As of Sunday afternoon, it had taken in an early $125 million domestically and $139. You know the numbers. Let's skip this, okay? Only a Cyclops living in a cave could possibly be surprised by this news. Nolan's been on a hot streak for the past 2 decades. His last film, a 3-hour biopic about a communist sympathizing physicist losing his security clearance, made nearly $1 billion. The Odyssey, a starry, action-packed modern spin in one of Western civilization's oldest stories, is both shocking, pause that ad, is both more accessible and more inherently commercial than Oppenheimer was. It would be shocking if Nolan's latest work didn't earn even more money than the Last Picture winner did. That said, there are 2 notable takeaways from the Odyssey's dominance. 1, Nolan doesn't need a Barbenheimer-style grassroots phenomenon to sell tickets. And 2, social media noise is not real life. Now, what is that talking about, folks? It's talking about the fact that we saw something happen here that we've seen before. We saw it with Snow White. We've seen it with other movies where there's a dislike ratio campaign that happens, and it's not synthetic, it's organic. It's just people don't like it. They don't like the trailer, so they hit the dislike button. And if we look here, you can see the Odyssey official countdown had nearly 900,000 dislikes to 100,000 likes, and so everybody thought this film was going to bomb. Well, we didn't hear. We explained to you exactly what was going to happen, and it's happening, right? Remember what we said on this channel? It will have a huge first weekend. And then, if it is woke, if it is postmodern, if it is neo-Marxist, then it'll have a huge drop-off in the second weekend and Spider-Man will wipe it out. We're on that same trajectory now, folks. We know what's going to happen. We predicted this. We told you this was going to happen because we knew the IMAX scores, the IMAX costs were going to change everything. But this is what they're trying to say. This is what Vanity Fair is going to say. And then the trades are going to follow suit today and tomorrow. Folks, we know them better than they know themselves. What are they going to do? They're going to parrot this. Vanity Fair is the opening parlay of this. but you're going to hear this over and over. The idea that go woke, go broke is dead. Está muerto, pero no es la verdad. It's not the truth, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, but here's what's going to happen. Our friends out there who dive into making sure that they're on the popular side are going to be deeply annoyed when they discover that actually this movie is selling the same number of tickets as Mando and Grogu, and it could outsell it slightly, but the actual box office numbers just look bigger, and the headlines are shifting. Now, why does that matter? It matters, folks, because if you want to understand what's happening in the culture, you are being greatly misled if you believe that this has more cultural impact than Mando and Grogu. And Mando and Grogu was a huge disappointment, a black eye, an embarrassment for Disney. The only difference in that movie and the Odyssey at this point is the average price of the tickets. That is literally the only difference, okay? Read on with me in Vanity Fair. I want you to see how the trap has been set. It says perhaps a handful of trolls. A handful of trolls, what you say? 900,000 trolls, a small handful, says Vanity Fair. A small group that includes the richest man in the world, Elon, has sworn off Nolan's film because its cast has the audacity to feature both a black woman and a trans. We're not going to say that. It's not that, by the way. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with Helen of Troy, who is a specifically Greek character being cast in a way that is specifically not Greek. And you all know this only goes one way. You all know how the game is played. And then the artist formerly known as Paige being cast as some sort of extremely masculine soldier. And I'll just tell you, it's incredibly silly in the film because, well, it doesn't play that way. It doesn't present that way. It's one of the biggest flaws of the film, I would say, along with the random Asian soldier who suddenly appears on the Greek ship and leaps to go to the sirens. But where did he come from? Where does he go? Nobody knows. But he is not Cotton Eye Joe. He is Asian token soldier. It says, but loud as their voices may be, the actual grosses prove that they couldn't dampen the Odyssey's prospects. One could take this outcome as evidence that the right-wing campaign against the film actually helped it by turning the film into a liberal cause célèbre. If one were interested in being wrong, the real truth is that normal people, regular folks whose brains haven't been pickled by constant exposure to the worst opinions on the internet, are unaware of this manufactured controversy. And even if they've heard about it, they certainly aren't letting it influence their viewing habits. Now, it goes on to talk about Ghostbusters. In case you thought that they were over Ghostbusters 2016, they're not. It goes on to talk about Star Wars Last Jedi, because if you thought they were over that, they're not. They are furious. They're angry that you refuse to go see all of the changes they made to franchises, and they are giddy. They are gleeful that they've tricked, they believe, audiences with the Odyssey. And they're so happy to see conservative commentators not understanding what they're doing when they praise this thing to the hilt. And they get what this is about, even if the conservative commentators do not. But it all comes back to this, ladies and gentlemen. It all comes back to that Park Place. It all comes back to our explanation of what's really going on. If the movie ticket prices are 50% higher, and they are, on average, for the Odyssey than say, Mandalorian and Grogu, that's how you're getting this lift. That's what's happening. This film has 2 weekends to make its money. One is in the bank. The other, we don't know yet. And then Spider-Man comes in, and Spider-Man really will be popular, and Spider-Man really will sell tickets. Folks, you need to be careful of this trap. It's been set. They are beginning to do everything they need to do. Vanity Fair is just the beginning. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. You can like the Odyssey, you can dislike the Odyssey. I don't care. It's just a movie, right? Just a movie. However, what you need to know is, don't fall for this narrative that's about to come out. When they say this proves yada, 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 you say you raised the ticket prices and got a big first weekend. And Pro said you would the whole time, weeks and months ahead. Kudos, by the way, to Odin, OMB Reviews. He's on this, and he's got it exactly right. Folks, that's the story today. We want you to know what's really happening now. The Odyssey is not a giant cultural moment. The normies are not going to see it, in fact. It's the cinephiles. It's the Christopher Nolan bros. But average people are saying 3-hour movie? I don't think so. That's what's happening. And guess what? It's going to be portrayed one way. You know the truth. Click the like button. Dive into it yourself. See if we're telling the truth. We'd love to hear from you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for us, but we've got more content on the way, including another video this afternoon and the live show, 9 p.m. Eastern this evening. We'll see you there. We hope, we pray. And until then, for the rest of the day, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.